No, I'm very pleased with having the last section here. I am sorry, though, because Klaus Höckner from Accessible Media Austria was not able to make it. His flight was cancelled for one reason or another. So I apologize on behalf of that. That gives us, looking from the positive side, more time for Shadi and Raf to resolve all the issues. So I want to reintroduce my consortium colleague, Annika Nitzio from FTB, the German Research Institute for Technology and Disability, who will moderate the panel. So please join me in welcoming back Annika.
Thank you, and welcome back to the last session this afternoon, where we want to look at more practical things. So what can website owners do to improve the accessibility of their websites? So far we have talked about the policy aspects and about evaluations and technical details, and we've heard a lot about the user perspective. But now, to increase accessibility, somebody actually has to do it, to take the responsibility. And that is the topic for our panel. Yeah. On the one hand, we have Shadi Abuzara from W3C. He works for the Web Accessibility Initiative, and he's the expert with all the answers, or with all the one with all the questions, maybe. And on my other side, that's Raf de Rooij from the Netherlands. He's an accessibility expert working for Logios, the public authority for e-government. And let's start with the first question. I'd like to ask you to tell us a bit about yourself, and then the first question, from your experience, which are the major challenges that site owners are facing in making their sites accessible? So, Raf, please, you go first.
Well, there are a lot of challenges. We've seen a lot of passing. I think in the end it all comes down to a subject called quality assurance. This is not a technical subject in itself. It has a lot of technical implications, but how to organize that online information and service online information and service delivery is on a quality level which does not, for example, exclude people from access to that information and services. So quality assurance and how to organize it and how to be sponsored by other layers in the organizations, I think, is one of the major challenges that a lot of organizations face.
Oh, thank you. And now, Shadi, from your point of view, which are the biggest challenges that need to be resolved?
Since this is the last session, maybe to tie a lot of things together that were raised during the day, because I think there were a lot of interesting things. I think I agree, well, not I think, I agree with the Raf, that the organizational aspect beyond the technical, and I think this is a big issue. When I ask myself, what is the website owner, or who is the website owner? In many organizations, unfortunately, it is the webmaster or somebody, or the developer who is told, okay, now you make the website accessible. So, they get their magic wand and suddenly, poof, the website becomes accessible and all the problems are solved. That's at least how they envision it. If we look at website owner as a much bigger construct, as the entire organization, the people who are involved in creating the content, the quality assurers, the designers, the whole thing, then it becomes a shared responsibility, and it becomes an organizational aspect, as Ralph was saying. I also really liked the Polish approach that Susanna was introducing today. The aspect of training and awareness. I think this is a major obstacle for website owners. Meanwhile, I think a lot of website owners have heard of at least in Europe, have heard of accessibility. They heard that the Commission told them that they need to do something, or that their local governments, or somebody told them that they need to do something, but they have no idea how to approach it, or the skills or whatever. They ask a developer, can you make do you know about accessibility? And they say, yeah, that means 24/7. you know, there's a lack of training, there's a lack of awareness and understanding. At the same time, monitoring, I'm not exactly sure how Susanna mentioned understood monitoring, if it's monitoring from within the organization to self-monitor how you're progressing, and also external monitoring from some entity or something that is watching the progress and how actually those things are progressing in the region to set measures to address them. So those are some of the main challenges, I think. The lack of ownership, who is really the owner, the organizational aspects, and the training and awareness raising, and also what we heard today is, especially from the user perspectives, uniform policies, whatever they may be, to really have a normal expectation. It can't be that you're in one European member state and have one expectation, another one, and have another expectation, or even competing standards or competing requirements. So those are some of the things that website owners, I think, face.
Thank you. So now we've heard about the organizational aspects, and especially about the quality assurance, that it's an important part. So I'd like to go into a bit more detail about that. So which quality assurance approaches work best? Should we do it internally or externally? Is there an option to do it automatically, or do we need manual quality assurance? And of course, we could also talk a bit about how tools can support this type of work.
This was the subject of my contribution to the EIII project. I've been working on a model for an assurance-based model for how to improve websites. I've called it the publication. I've called web content accessibility assurance. This works this way. Can I? Yeah. Okay. This is me. Yeah. What is really interesting? Last April, there was a new version of the public draft of the Directive on the Accessibility of Public Sector Bodies' Websites from the European Commission. And in Article 1, some words changed. It's changed from make accessible to ensure accessibility. That sounds like the same, but in my opinion, this is not really the case. But I think this is, in my personal opinion, as an accessibility expert, I think this is a really good change. But nowadays, in most European countries, the policies are based on make accessible. You have a website and you have a rule, and the rule says make that website accessible. Very simply put. But there was also in a report, a study on assessing and promoting e-accessibility. There was also a mentioning of 3 countries outside of Europe, which were the United States, Australia, and Canada. And Canada had a really interesting approach because they have a policy based on ensure accessibility. They have a standard that defines the roles and responsibilities from different actors within organizations, all the way from functional specialists, the web accessibility specialists, for example, all the way up to chief information officers and executive officers. And that's a really interesting one. I've been used that to see what the difference were, and I came up with this figure. On the left side, you see like how it's done today. There is a policy that says make accessible based on conformance to a norm, which is WCAG 2, and there's a material object, which is a website. And what you do, you test for conformance. And the results from testing are input for evaluating is that goal achieved. On the other hand, what Canada does is they also have a policy based on assurance of web accessibility using WCAG 2, still in there. And there's also a material object, the website. and there's also testing against WCAG, but that is not used for evaluating goal achievement, but to provide input for decisions and actions that are related to repairing that website. And there's also some external influences that can prevent full conformance to the norm. That can be procurement. You have a contract with a supplier and you still have 3 years to go in that contract. So breaking up or ending the contract will be a problem. There's not enough knowledge within the organization. Tooling is not fit for accessibility purposes. So those external influences are also input for the decisions and actions that are relating to eliminating those external influences. And those combined, that is the policy object, that is the input for evaluating goal achievement. So it's not only the what, are you accessible or not, but also the why. If you are not fully accessible, why is that? You need, so this is data-based, and the quality of that data, you need a lot of data, testing data, and also from the decisions and actions. The quality of the data is very important to see if the proper measures are taken and the right decisions are taken. So you can check data for like the timeliness. One of those issues is the shelf life of test data. If you change a web page, if you have tested before that the result of that test is no longer valid because you have changed. The completeness, there's a scoping issue often. If some part is difficult to achieve, then you scope it out and you can still test. Or you only use results from automated testing. That is also a quality issue if you don't have a complete set of data. The correctness, of course, how reliable is the data? Is self-testing sufficiently reliable? How is the testing performed? What is the methodology that was used? And there's also the evaluability of control measures. Can the issue be solved? Is the measure already put into place? And the last one is, did it work as intended? So that way you have at least good indicators for how useful the information, the data that is available, how useful it is in practice. This can be used to make like an accessibility statement, which can publicly made available on a website, for example, by the organization itself. And it can be used in cases when an organization is not able to demonstrate full conformance, which is required. Now, the inputs are the test data and the control measures that were taken by the organization that is responsible. And for each issue that was found, well, which WCAG success criterion it was, or which external influence it was, what was the cause, what was the consequence, why is it, did it become inaccessible, what is the action taken by the organization, and when will it be implemented. If you provide this kind of information, then you can start steering towards improvement. And over time, you can also start measuring the progress that an organization makes. Because one of the problems with web accessibility or evaluation exclusively based on testing websites is that all those external influences don't play a role because you don't measure that. But they provide a lot of useful information. Oh, this was... No, I give it back to you now, right?
Yeah, thank you, Raf, for that introduction to that kind of methodology that you've developed. Shadi, any further thoughts on quality assurance?
Yeah, I think I think the tension between automatic testing and manual testing or qualitative testing has always existed, and I don't think it's an either or. I think both have their place and both have their strengths and weaknesses. Automatic testing is great for scalability. You press a button and it scans gazillions of pages in fairly little time, fairly little effort. But Of course, it only tests what it can test. It makes mistakes, and you have false positives and false negatives, as we heard earlier today about, this particular website in the Netherlands or something. This is a price for having the scalability. And you don't have to be either or. You can actually combine both. You could have automatic testing combined with selected manual testing. Again, of course, the less manual you're going to be, the more errors you're going to have, the bigger your error margin, because you're only testing a subset and only certain things. And accessibility, by definition, is a quality attribute. So it does need quality testing. If you want to, and this is where we should separate, is the question, how is a website performing with respect to accessibility? That's one question. Another question, which is, I think, very, very different, is how is, this set of websites, the European countries or the websites in Iceland or whatever, how are they performing on a very general level? Those are two very different questions, and I think they have different approaches and different answers, and I think we should also interpret the results differently. You shouldn't look at the results from this as a direct reflection of a website, but as much more heuristical. So quality assurance, I think, has many different aspects and many different impacts. Bart today was saying earlier, Bart number 63, he was saying that it's not very effective to test a website, after it's developed, or to retrofit websites. And this is very often what happens for website owners. It's the day before launch, and then they call up some certification agency or some quality assurer, some quality tester in the organization. They say, tell me that the website is accessible because we're launching tomorrow. If you've developed a whole website, you haven't done any quality assurance or any testing, I'm pretty sure you're going to find mistakes without having seen the website. It's fairly logic. So there is this aspect of incremental testing, incremental quality assurance. You start already at the design, actually even earlier, in the description, in the storyboarding of your website. When you're creating the website, have I considered accessibility requirements in there? Have I considered use cases of accessibility? So you need to start very early with accessibility throughout the whole implementation. And this is also a type of quality assurance that is irrespective of the testing that we're talking about today, the manual versus automated. So all those things have its place. I really think, the work of the project and the attempt to have common set of procedures in the AutoWCAG community group, I think this is really great. I think it's important that we have a common set of how to test certain checks, that we all do that, and then the tool makers can compete on the usability and performance aspects and so on, but there should be a harmonized set of tests. I think that's important, but we should never neglect that there's much more to that, including the work that Raf is talking about.
Yeah, so we learned that achieving web accessibility is a continuous process. You should take it into account from the start, and then there's my slide. And it says accessibility is a continuous process. You should take it into account right from the start, but I think there are also other aspects that have to be taken into account once the site has been launched. So it's not the case that it is accessible and then you put it online and then it will remain accessible. It's a continuous process. So let's look into this process a little bit more. What other steps are needed maybe after the site has been launched and when it's online?
That you can do it manually, you can do it automatically, you can do it semi-automatically, you can use an editor plugin for accessibility testing. But what is really important that you gather that data, and so you can use it to analyze problems, but also reuse it for accountability reasons. that you have tested. You know what was tested, when it was tested, how it was, what the results were. And if you use different data sources, you can also aggregate data. So you can create a complete picture instead of just fragmented data portions. Another thing is, I think, is that within an organization that all actors must be well described. It's not only the specialist within an organization, it's also the head of a department, it's also the CIO, it is also the executive from the organization. They are the people who have to take decisions. If you have a need as a specialist, as a web specialist, then some problems you cannot solve by yourself. For example, you need funding for that, you need a budget. Well, they can provide a budget if you make a good case. So there's a lot of players involved. And in many organizations still, the subject of web accessibility is mandated to a specialist who claims he knows what he's doing. Well, okay, then the head of the department says, okay, it's your problem now, and he solves his own problem. But it should not work that way. You have to cooperate within an organization to get good results. And I think what also is important that if you have like information about the state of accessibility of your website, publish it online. Make it available for anyone to see so people can act upon it. If there's a problem, be honest about it. Tell them when it's going to be solved. But at least then you have good information. And external actors can help you solve that kind of problems. If it takes too long because there's no budget, for example, you say, hey, we are hindered by the lack of accessibility of the website, it should be solved, and please hurry. So that might help. Your turn.
I don't really have anything to add. I think we all understand it's a shared responsibility. And I think there was one question on your slides, can the tools of EIII help? And I think absolutely. I think this is one aspect. I think that there are many other aspects, and we should see it as mosaic with different pieces that need to be put together. I think Michael today in the morning also mentioned the role of authoring tools. And I really agree with that. What's the role of authoring? Most of the content that is available on the web, on your website, is through some sort of a content management system, through some authoring tool. Is that tool helping you create accessibility, or do you have to actually work around that tool? So you're buying a tool for a lot of money, very often, or having it custom developed or whatever, that is not helping you with accessibility. And guess what? Beside the web content accessibility guidelines that was mentioned a lot today, I hope all of you know about the authoring tool accessibility guidelines. Can I ask for a raise of hands who knows about the authoring tool accessibility guidelines? Okay, most. Okay, good. This is our community, so I was hoping most people know. But that's important. That's actually a message that is important to get out, to try to get those guidelines. There's also the third set of guidelines, the user agent accessibility guidelines. Ralph knows that I always have to say them all. That's important. The role of browsers, the role of assistive technology. How much time do we spend in trying to work around the bugs in browsers and assistive technologies and so on? And that's really hindering accessibility. So we as a community have, I think, also the responsibility to try to push those two standards equally with WCAG, because only then can we help ourselves actually achieve WCAG. WCAG is one part of the whole thing, and all those tools need to all work together.